Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the MOONDROP May. This is the latest IEM from MOONDROP, sporting a DSP cable, which is something that is starting to slowly become all the rage, and I guess this year it will even become more prominent. Anyway, this is their best implementation of that DSP application cable with an IEM. This is the sleeve, with the usual waifu design, frequency response graph, which kind of measures basically the same as what I measured then. They've got some specs here as well: 120 decibels of sensitivity, 30 ohms of impedance, and this particular earphone, the May, has a peculiarity, which is the fact that it has a coaxially mounted 10mm driver with a 6mm planar. So it's kind of something like we've seen already in the C Audio Rinko and more recently now in the shows in Midori, the P10. Although I think that the May definitely has the best implementation of those of the three. Let's put it that way. The box, you open it up, it's got on the actual box, you notice it's got like this kind of designed logo, which has a very much a Louis Vuitton kind of vibe going for it. The IEMs came over there. You lift that out, underneath as a box with all the accessories. The actual case comes here. That's the little quality control certificate. That's it. So the packaging is a nice packaging. I mean, this is an IEM that costs anywhere between $65 and $70 depending on where you get it. And when you factor in that just the cable alone, the DSP cable alone costs about $25, that's actually not bad value. Okay. The cable. Let me show you here the cable. Okay, this is the DSP cable. Okay, it's got the little DSP small DAC amp on the end, USB connector. The cable itself, the quality of the cable is actually microphone over there. The cable is actually the same cable quality as the one that comes in the Aria2, as you can see, exactly the same. So the DSP cable is actually a good quality DSP cable. There's nothing wrong with it there. Okay, nice quality. That's it. The only thing that might maybe hinder some sort of performance is the microphone here, but I don't even think that's an issue. Anyway, that's the cable. I'll show you, or I'll attempt to show you the cable working in a second. These are the IEMs themselves. Nicely designed shell, resin, 3D printed, with a nice design faceplate, very classy again, with that kind of logo, which has got very much that LV vibe going for it. I'm using a HIFIGO cable, which just matched nicely, and I preferred this cable to other cables that I used. I'm using BGVP wideboard tips, not the stock tips. The stock tips sounded fine, but these wideboard just changed completely the dynamics of the May, and I think these are the tips that should be used, some wideboards. Fit is perfect. It's not a heavy IEM. It just looks, it looks very nice. It looks very classy, very premium. This is the actual case that it brings, the same as the MOONDROP Aria's case. Okay, nicely padded inside, a little pouch there. Those are the stock tips, as you can see, the usual tips, nothing special. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's basically it. So it's a nicely built IEM. Like I said, costs at most $70. It's a nicely built IEM. When you factor in that you got this cable, which it's by itself, it can cost $25. It's not a bad value. Anyway, let me see if I can get this thing going, this DSP cable going, because this DSP cable is an absolute nightmare to sometimes get going, and that's the one thing that I'm gonna straight away kind of make sure that I rant to a certain extent about, which is, it's all very nice when brands and Tanstrom has also had the same problem. Tanstrom, MOONDROP, when they make all these DSP cables, or they want to enter the TWS market, and then they make these apps which either don't work. When they do work, they work very badly, full of hiccups and crashing and so on and so forth. Or then in the case here of the May, I mean, I've got it working once or twice, but it's more the times that it doesn't work than the times that it does work. And as you can see straight away, it doesn't, I mean, my devices, I've got these devices, the Sparks, I've got the Space Travel, I've got a Neko Cake, and it just does not recognize the May. Sometimes it does, most of the times it doesn't. And when I press the May, it says no device detected, and it's connected. okay? And I've tried other phones and it does the same thing. So I'm not going to spend yet time trying to make it work, because sometimes it eventually does work when I disconnect it and I connect it again. I mean, I'll just give it a go so you guys don't think I'm being an ass. Let's see. Let's close down the app again. Let's try again, opening it up. Doesn't recognize it. So I would have liked to have shown you the app working. It's got a nice feature, which is the fact that well, two nice features. The equalizer is a parametric equalizer where you can control things quite nicely. You can actually choose the frequency. There's not set frequencies. You can choose the frequency and then adjust the Q factor and the gain. And then it does have pre-selected settings of other Moondrop earphones that you can basically implement their tuning or their sound profile onto the May. And I think that's assuming that you do get a cable that does work properly and doesn't have any issues. I guess that's a plus point, a good selling point, which is that you can, with one single IEM, get a perception of what other IEMs from Moondrop might sound like. Okay. However, I preferred to listen to the May with a normal cable like I've got here, and 95% of the review was done with this cable, with a normal cable, and not with the DSP cable. Like I said, I did get it to work a couple of times. When it did work, it worked fine. There was no, it was ample volume. There was the occasional hiccup here and there. But it was okay. It definitely needs to be polished up. The app, and this is a message that goes out to Moondrop and Testrum, they definitely need to work on their apps and make sure their apps work properly before launching them. I mean, when we talk about brands like SoundPeats and Soundcore and QCY, which are brands which focus on TWSs, their apps are flawless. They work perfectly. Okay, and why can't Moondrop do the same thing? Why? I mean, I just don't understand. Anyway, let's get you onto the sound of the May, because that's what we want to know, how it sounds and how it doesn't sound. The May again follows that kind of style of VDSF tuning that Moondrop has become known for, but it gives it its own little touch. And I guess that touch is the fact that they are using a coaxial driver, and by using a coaxial driver, it does, I guess, it did allow them to let the drivers focus more on the areas where they work properly, and avoid then with that certain issues with non-linearities. So you have the dynamic driver doing what it does best, which is handling the lows and the mids, and then the planar doing the upper mids or the higher frequencies only. And that division and whatever that's been done does show itself very well in a sound which has got above all a very melodic presentation. It's very melodic, very very smooth, very easy to listen to, and ultimately very balanced. There's none of that SSR emphasis on the mids, upper mids and treble, and that, which was quite a handful. And it gives us a sound. It's not like the original True as well, which was too light on the bass. It just gives us a very balanced out sound in terms of bass, mids and treble, with no real areas of weakness. If I now have to get into a little bit more detail and try and find faults, okay, the planar, you would expect a little bit more detail, a little bit more crispiness. But I think that the fact they've done, or if they have done it this way, that does bring to the table then the non-existence of any timbre which is usually associated with plain out drivers. So everything is very smooth, and no timbre, no sibilance, no nothing. Not no timbre, no tonality associated, not metallicness, no nothing, no tizziness. It's a very easy to listen upper mids and treble. Again, I repeat, I preferred, but way preferred, the sound with the cable and using whatever source I wanted, as opposed to have been limited to the cable, to the DSP cable. Although with the DSP cable, the results are very good, very decent. And I think the biggest difference that you will notice between the DSP cable using the normal sound profile for the May and using a normal cable with external sources is that you notice that the DSP cable, yes, does bring that versatility of tuning and adjusting and so on and so forth, but you feel that somehow you are locked into a specific sound which, how can I explain, doesn't expand. And the moment you listen to something, using an external deck, and I used, for example, the Frankenstein here with the YUKI, I liked very much this combination, and the May, the sound is very expansive. It's a very large sound. It's very big sounding. Now, is it very big and large sounding as compared to some of these other IEMs that I've got here? No, it isn't. But it just opens up the sound. It opens up the dynamics, especially of the May, as compared with using it with the DSP cable. Now, getting onto the sound and what have I selected? Well, obviously, I had to select some stuff from Moondrop, and I've got here the Aria2, okay, and I've also got here the Moondrop LAN. The LAN uses a beryllium coated driver. The Aria2 uses a ceramic spherical dome diaphragm. That's the let's say the technical aspect that differentiates the Aria2 from many other IEMs. So we have a beryllium driver, Moondrop here, a ceramic coated dome style driver here on the Aria, and we have that sapphire coated driver on the May. What does this then translate in terms of sound? Well, it translates into a sound that over here on the LAN, it's the lightest in the bass and perhaps the more detailed up top. On the Aria2, we have a nicely struck balance between all the frequencies, with a focus, I would say, on a warmer tonality, and the May surprisingly has got the warmest tonality of the three. Anyway, I have got here the Moondrops, like I said. I've also selected the Pula PA01, the XSL X-ONE, the Mark III version, and then on this end here I've got the LM, the EA500LM from SiMGOT, the EW200 from SiMGOT as well, and the Q5. The price variety here is quite big. I mean, this is about $40, this is about $80, this is about $55 to $60, this is about the same thing, $55 to $60, this is about $70, as like I said, this is about $89 if I'm not mistaken, the LM, this is about $40, this is about $55. So we have 70 as kind of like the midpoint, and then we have IEMs very, on either side, cheaper and more, and slightly more expensive. Well, in reality, the only more expensive one here is the LM. The rest is all cheaper by $10, $20, $30 cheaper. And I thought it was, the reason why I did this was to obviously position the May better, okay, for you guys to understand then where the May sits or what is the potential of the May. As I said, the May, in terms of its sound, it's got a warmer sound. It's a nice, warm, smooth sound. And out of all of these other IEMs here, the other one that also has that warm, smooth sound is the Mark III from XSL, the X-ONE. However, the one thing that you will notice straight away on the X-ONE is that the bass is way more impactful. It's got a way more gutsy bass. as deep, if not even deeper, in terms of the sub bass, but the slam that this offers is superior. And I guess this is down to the fact that the driver being used here is the same driver that has been used in the MIM Dark Magician, and that is a very good driver, and that was a very good IEM. So the driver here and the way that it's been tuned conveys a very nice, impactful, strong, clean bass, cleaner than on the May. The mids are about as equal, and then I would say that the May, perhaps in the upper mids and treble, it's where it slightly edges out the XSL by being just that little bit smoother, that little bit more delicate. So it doesn't have that. It doesn't have such a guttural presentation. It's a more classy, gentleman kind of presentation. Okay, compared to the Moondrops, compared to the LAN, it is overall a more, I would say, balanced presentation here on the May, simply because you got a little bit more bass than what you do here on the LAN. The LAN is a little bit bass light, so it will probably be the one that has got the more typical Moondrop type of sound. It's the more clinical one here, without a doubt. Compared to the Aria2, I prefer the bass of the Aria2 more, because although it's slightly less than here, so in terms of the quantity, the quality is slightly superior, and that just opens up the mids and allows the vocals to just come across in a more pleasant manner, at least for me. It's not that the mids here are not done well, they just come across in a nicer form. Now obviously, of course, we have the issue that this is roughly $80, this is $60. The price difference there, is it justified, isn't it justified? Well, we'll get into that in a second. The Pula has got, again, a very nice sub bass execution, very nicely done mid bass as well. The mids are flawless, and then it's got plenty of extension. Once again, the Pula works best with these wide bore tips. With these wide bore tips, the difference in terms of the sound of the Pula was quite impressive. On this end here, and just before I just carry on there, as I said, these ones here, this is as warm sounding as the May, while these ones here have got as well a warmer type of sound, but more focused on the mids and the highs to a certain extent. The one that's the most emphasized will probably be the LAN, and then the Pula will be second, and then the one that will be probably the warmest of these three is definitely the Aria2. Okay, on this end, these three are definitely brighter sounding IEMs, and the interesting thing is that although we have, for example, here we see on the LAN, we see a tendency of it being bass light. Here it's more balanced, here it's more balanced, here it's perhaps more bass heavy than the mids. Over here, you initially think that they are more treble focused, more upper mids and treble focused, but then when you start listening to them carefully, you actually see that no, the balance that has been struck is very good. The SiMGOT, the Q5, fantastic IEM. I think it's one of those IEMs that, you know, hasn't really gotten much love, maybe because of the way that it started out with this issue of the shell and so on and so forth. That by the way, so that you guys know, they do have a patent on the shell. Okay, there's a patent. EPZ does have a patent on this shell. So whether or not that is copying or not copying, I'll leave that to you guys to decide. But that kind of tainted a little bit its image, but in terms of its sound, absolutely fantastic. The Q5 and the EW200 actually are very, very similar in their presentation. I would say that the EW200, down to the fact that it's got a metal shell as opposed to the Q5's resin shell, it has a bass which is just that little extra more incisive, that little extra more impactful. And also, I'm assuming that the quality of the driver here is a better quality driver than in the Q5, and that also dictates that bass will then be just that little extra bit better. Okay, and then the LM, the EA500, the LM really doesn't need a lot for me to say. It's an absolute fantastic IEM, and it's confidently it's the best IEM under $100 currently. If the EA500 its older sibling was already, in my opinion, deserving of that title, this one definitely has improved upon that. And if you have the EA500, like I mentioned in my review, buying this one, well, okay, I guess you can find reasons enough to buy it if you don't want to modify the original EA500 to get that little extra bass. But if you're buying outright from the beginning, then the EA500, the LM, is definitely the better choice. It's got that balance struck between bass, mids, and highs, perfectly executed. The driver being used is an amazing driver. It just sounds really good, and it trades blows very easily with way more expensive IEMs, way more expensive IEMs. Okay, so now that I've kind of given a little brief overview and talked a little bit about each IEM, how does then the May sound without the DSP and just using the cable, and how does that sound and compare to these IEMs? As I said, it's got that warmer sound, that warmer vibe going for it, which is very smooth. And when I compare it, for example, to the LAN, and I like the LAN, I enjoy the LAN, it just makes for a more satisfying listen, especially with my library. It just makes it more satisfying. If the LAN had a bit more bass, maybe then my opinion would be different. Factoring in that, that as an IEM standalone, they basically cost the same thing, but we do have the fact that we have that DSP cable here, which adds a little bit more versatility in a way. You can connect up the DSP cable, take it outside, listen to it, and then if you want, you get home, swap over the cable, connect it up with a better desktop system that you have, and you're going to enjoy a really well-tuned IEM, because the truth is the May is very well-tuned. So compared to the LAN, it's a superior IEM. Compared to the XSL, the X-ONE, they are similarly priced, but if I have to look just purely in terms of sound, they are side grades to each other. I would say that they complement each other. The Mark III has got a more dynamic, more incisive bass sound. This one offers a slightly more polished upper mids and treble. And I think that in itself is enough to justify having both of them. Okay, what I've just said about the XSL applies itself as well to the Pula. The Pula has got really well executed upper mids and treble, very good. And in terms of its actual technical capability, I would even say that the Pula is superior to the May. Not a bloodbath, but it is superior. It's got a slightly bigger soundstage, very well executed imaging. I would say only the timbre and tonality I would give it perhaps here to the May, but technically this is a better IEM. But like I said, I would say it's the same situation as with the XSL. They are both side grades to the May. Compared to the Aria, I like the sound of the Aria very much. I'm probably one of the few people that can appreciate it. The problem with the Aria is costs $80. For $80, you already had the SiMGOT EA500, which was better, and now you got the LM, which costs basically the same thing and is much better. And price is really the issue here with the Aria 2. The Aria 2, I think, should have been no more than $65. If it had been that price, then there would be arguments made towards, okay, it's a solid option, it's an IEM that makes sense owning. But excuse me, when we're talking 80, and I've seen it as high as $89, when you're talking that kind of money, it's difficult to then justify it, because okay, fine, it brings a decent cable, the accessories are what they are, nice case, but it's difficult to justify as compared sonically with the May. This has cleaner mids than the May, down to the fact that it's got less bass energy. The highs are a little bit more detailed. Here they are smoother. Technically, soundstage here is bigger than here. Imaging is about the same. Detail retrieval slightly superior in the Aria 2 as compared to the May. The May has got about the same quality of timbre and tonality as the Aria 2. Sonically, they are again complements, very much like the XSL and the Pula. However, the fact that there is an almost $30 price difference between the two of them, I would say that the May probably makes a little bit more sense. You got that DSP cable, whether you enjoy it or don't enjoy it, and whether you're not, confronted with issues of it not working properly. That cable does allow for quite a bit of versatility in terms of what you can get. Compared then, on this end with the let's say the brighter bunch, the LM is just a better IEM. Period. It justifies its price well. It's as simple as that. Okay. Compared to the EW200, and with I would say the EW200 ultimately is a more competent IEM sonically as well than the May. It's got very well executed. I mean, it's down as well to the fact that it uses that driver that they're using, which is a mix of DLC and LCP. I believe they call it the LDM, if I'm mistaken. The bass is it's got that right amount of weight, cleanliness, and impact that the May is just smoother. That's it. So sonically, the EW200 is superior to the May. It's also cheaper. Fair enough, it doesn't have the DSP cable. You can use that as an argument to justify the May. And the SiMGOT, very much the same situation as the EW200 again. Although I guess because this can sometimes the EPZ, the Q5 can sometimes sound a little bit less polished in the upper mids and treble. I would probably say that this might make a little bit more sense. Okay. But honestly it's a very small difference, and again we're talking roughly $50-something for this. We're talking $40 odd dollars, $45 for the EW200. It's difficult not to say that these IEMs are worthwhile getting, or if you have them, that this doesn't make sense getting. It doesn't. And the EA500LM, like I said, it's the best IEM out of all of them. And that's basically it, guys. I mean, if I have to look, like I said, purely as an IEM, forgetting the DSP cable, this is a very nice Moondrop IEM. That's the reality. It's got a nice, agreeable tune. It's not excessively clinical like maybe the LAN was considered. The balance struck between sound and price is way more interesting than what they've done in the Aria2, and it offers something different than the Aria2. The Aria2, although like I said, I liked it, there's something that's missing there to justify it wholeheartedly. And having said that, I will say that it is a much better than IEM than the Starfield 2. The Starfield 2 was an absolute disaster. And then with these let's say lesser brands, the Pula and the lesser brands by the fact that they're not as known, not that they are inferior, but these less known brands, the Pula and the XSL, this is a nice side grade. So if you have these two, or if you have one of these, yes, it's an interesting IEM to have. I mean, you could maybe even use the DSP cable on them, and also enjoy them with a little bit more added tuning and so on and so forth. As for the DSP cable, like I said in the beginning of the review, this is the biggest issue. I mean, honestly, Moondrop, make sure that this works properly. Make sure that your app works properly. Make sure that it recognizes when a person is wanting to use it, and it's not a nightmare like it apparently seems to be. Like I said, I tried showing you how that it would work, and it didn't work for nothing. And probably now if I switch off everything once I've done the review and I go try and make it see it will probably work. So go figure. Anyway, guys, let me quickly show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section here for the Moondrop May. Let me just do away here with some of these graphs so that it's not as confusing. Okay, so we take away the majority of these. Just gonna leave here these two. Okay, these two graphs are what the one with the let's say the more jaggedy upper frequencies is the May in its with its original tip, with its stock tips, which is not how I then ended up listening to it. And the graph in blue, which I'm now highlighting, is the May with the whiteboard tips. And with the whiteboard tips, BGVP, this is how I think the May just sounds the best. So I'm going to do away here with the stock one, because it just doesn't I mean, it sounded fine, it sounded okay, but the improvement with the whiteboard was quite significant. Okay, so there we go. That's the May then, using the BGVP whiteboard tips. As you can see, a nice sub-bass focus, basically no bleed into the mids. It's a very nice harmonish VDSF style Moondrop tuning, where the main thing here is that they've given it a healthy dose of bass, so it doesn't sound as thin as some of the usual implementations of this type of tuning. And I mean, I'm going to show you straight away here the LAN, and you can see that basically up top they are very similar, okay, but the LAN obviously has less bass. It is cleaner, yes, more, more detailed in the mids, great technically, but the fact that it hasn't got as much bass as the May has does make it sound overly clinical sometimes, and it's not as cozy. Is it worse sounding? No, it just depends ultimately what you want. So if you want a more clinical sounding IEM, then definitely the LAN is the option. If you want an IEM which does have, in my opinion, a very nice warm tuning, which is very appealing, then definitely the May is a very it's a very well executed IEM. Let me just show you now the Aria2. This is the Aria2. Again, it's not up top where you see the biggest differences. This is the Aria2 using the KV Aero 7 tips. The differences that you see here have to do with, in the case of the Aria2, I'm actually able to get it to to coincide here with 8 kilohertz peak because of the way the coupler and it receives the IEM. But with regards to, for example, the LAN, well, the LAN also got it there pretty close. The LAN is also basically at 8K, but with the May, the difficulty of the wideboard tip actually going into the coupler enough is what makes then you have this little difference here of it peaking at 7 and not at 8. Okay, but going back here to the Aria2, let me just take away here the LAN. You can see what I was mentioning, which is the Aria2 has got a nice sound. It's got a nice balance struck between the bass and the mids, but because it's got a little bit less sub bass, it has opened up the mids slightly, and the mids do sound a little bit more open. And then the higher frequencies, funny enough, they just sound just that little extra more smoother in the May. Now, is it a huge difference? No, it's not really a huge difference. It's not. The issue here is the price, and if you take away the cable, we're talking about an IEM which costs $80 which is the Aria2, and an IEM which costs roughly $40, which is the May. And the May is offering a sound which is every bit as good, every bit as satisfying to at least for the majority of people as the sound of the Aria2. Okay, so that's the Aria2 out of the way. Let me now show you the Pula, the PA01. The PA01, as you can see, has got, at least graphically, very much the same sort of bass and so on. But then the PA just sounds more detailed in terms of the treble area than the May does. And this is with the May using the white boards, like I was mentioning, because with the stock tips or with a normal board tip, it sounds more closed down. Again, it will be very much what you prefer, but the Pula is, like I mentioned, a nice side grade because of the fact that it does offer way more detail here, and then ultimately the technicalities do come across just slightly more detailed, slightly more well executed, a little bit more detailed retrieval and so on. Not huge differences, but it's a nice side grade. Another one here. Oh, I forgot to actually put here the graph of the XSL, but I'll get it to you in a second now. So that's that. Let's now compare here with the SiMGOTs. So let's get this one out of the way. Compare here with the SiMGOT, the EW200. Let's change the color, otherwise you guys won't understand anything. Let's make it green for the sake of being green. There we go. With the EW200, the bass, the mids, the highs, very similar graphically, but sonically there's way more detail here on the SiMGOT in terms of its upper mids and treble. Much better technically, sound stage is bigger, and the bass has got then that extra cleanliness and incisiveness. By comparison, the May's bass sounds slow and sluggish. It's not slow and sluggish. It's it's nicely done. It's a warmer sounding bass. But when you go back and forth between the two of them, that's how it will come across, that the bass of the May is sluggish. The EPZ. Let me put you now the EPZ. The EPZ is basically very similar to the SiMGOT, as you can see. Let me just take away quickly the May. You can see that they basically graph the same. Somehow, for some reason, I can't really explain it, and I guess it's just basically down to the driver quality, although they graph the same, because the driver quality of the SiMGOT, the EW200, is a better driver. The way that the bass comes across, and especially then the upper mids and treble, it's just way more, well, not way more polished, I'm going to exaggerate now, it's just more polished in the EW200. The EW200 sounds slightly more mature, slightly more well executed in the upper mids and treble as opposed to the Q5. Again, it's not huge differences, okay, but you do notice a difference, especially depending on what gear you have. You will notice it more or less, okay. That's the truth. So for example, going back to what I sometimes say about choosing your DACs correctly and so on and so forth, I would say, for example, the Q5 with something which is an ESS based DAC might sound overly bright, so I would go definitely for something like the M1P or like the Shio or the Panon Tail, for example, which is a little bit more warmer sounding. While, for example, on the SiMGOT, it can actually get away with having an ESS, although again it will fare better if it's like something like the M1P, which has the 4493 going for it. Okay, so let's put back here the May, and then the one that's still missing here out of all of them, well, I haven't shown you the EM500, so let's put out the EA500, which is number 13. So that's the EA500. The EA500, as you can see, graphs very similar to the May, very similar, but you listen to one and you listen to the other, and it's very different sounds. The LM just sounds clean. The bass is incredibly dynamic. It's like I said, you listen to one and you listen to the other, you don't even think it's possible that they graph so similarly. Technically as well, the LM is far superior. And then, as I was mentioning earlier, and I forgot to actually put the graph here, the XSL, the X-ONE, is probably the IEM that in terms of sound, without looking at the graph, okay, forget the graph, we're going to see the graph now, but when you listen to the sound of the XSL, it's the one that does does give the feeling of sounding the same sort of style of sound as the May, okay, that's there, okay. Forgive this little squeakiness here, but sometimes this happens. I guess it has to do with the microphone or something. It just happens. Bass wise, the bass of the XSL is superior without question. And then you also have, or rather, let me put it in another way. This treble that you hear on the XSL is to a certain extent the same sort of treble that you hear on the May with its stock tips. With the wideboard tips, it does open it up slightly, but not to this difference here. Okay, so that's why I was saying, you listen to the May and you listen to the XSL, they will come across very similar sounding. The biggest difference that you notice is the bass of the XSL is it's incisive, it's clean. It's probably, out of all of the IEMs, and even compared with the LM, it's probably the IEM that it's got that most impactful bass. Okay, it's got really good bass. And that's it, guys. I mean, I hope I was able to convey a good image, or good enough image to allow you to decide your minds with regards to the May. I think the May is a worthwhile IEM from Moondrop. Honestly, I really do. It's the fact that it has the cable, and that cable allows for that versatility in terms of being able to have it tuned like other IEMs from Moondrop. I think in itself already justifies its price. And even if you don't use that, if you just want to use it on its own with a different cable, I think it's a very nice, very nicely done tune from Moondrop, following their philosophy of the VDSF style. Definitely something that I would have liked to have seen, for example, on the Starfield 2. If the Starfield 2 had come out with a tuning like this, I think that would have been absolutely fantastic. But they decided to do some, I don't know, some weird ass tuning on it, and anyway, it was a mess. Guys, this has been a long review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've clarified any doubts that you might have. If you do still have any doubts, please feel free to ask me, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right? Don't forget, like and subscribe, please. Take care now. Bye bye.